It's 7 o'clock, I'll call our meeting to order. We got the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Webster. Here it's January 21st, 2021. I apologize for the echo. I don't usually use these, and I typically don't need them, so I'll back away from it a little bit. Thank you, Will. Tonight, we are having a continuation of the meeting that we had last month. I'm going to read the scheduled matter to us for the record, then I'm going to go through a couple of other things here administratively, and then we'll jump into the matter at hand. The scheduled matter we have, and I am going to make one change to the writing of it. I will tell you where that is. And it's BME Associates on behalf of Pride Mark Homes on a contract for approximately 44.1 acres on the southeast corner of Route 250 and State Road. The applicant is appearing before the Village of Webster Zoning Board of Appeals for the following item. 1, preliminary subdivision approval to develop approximately 44.1 acres for a 124 townhouse, for a 124 townhouse unit lot and the proposed community center pursuant to 137-5D of the village code, and this is where I'm making the change, what this says is site plan approval, and I am inserting the word preliminary here. This is preliminary site plan approval pursuant to 175-14B of the village code. The property is currently zoned R2 9.6. Having said that, I'm going to set that aside. That's what we're here to discuss tonight. We've got some folks in the general audience. You will all get a chance, if you so desire, to speak for or against this project. We'll listen to what you've got to say and stay as long as we need to. I know everybody likes to hear that. The other thing here is I have something I've been read aloud, or I've been asked to read here from the Webster Citizens Action League. I'm going to do that right now. It says, Dear Village Zoning Board member, a large 124 unit development on State Road will permanently change the southeast section of the village. It is the last large developable open space in the village. Development of this location should be done with care and take into account the residents nearby. The Webster Citizens Action League advocates on behalf of current residents in the village and town. After examining the materials provided to the public about this proposed large development, we are making the following recommendations to the zoning board. Currently, the land is wooded. Any development should be sensitive to the existing woods. We recommend that the applicant be required to do a survey of all trees on the land, and any trees greater than 4 inches in diameter be preserved, especially where there are little clusters of these large diameter trees. The applicant should be prohibited from clear cutting the area until this survey is complete and filed with the code enforcement officer. 2, the applicant should consolidate the open space in the development and provide for a village park of not less than 1/4 acres. The best location for the park would be directly across from the existing Chance Park. The development should redesign the townhouse units to face straight State Road. Villages are a single community. The proposed site plan has units facing inward, away from the village. All developments in the village should integrate with the village. And the last point or bullet was that the applicant should install a sidewalk along State Road and Webster Road. These sidewalks would begin to connect this development to existing sidewalks in the village. A major part of the last village comprehensive plan was to create a walkable community. To recap, this development should open out to the village, have a sidewalk system that can connect to existing village sidewalks in the future, consolidate open space in a new village into a new village park, and preserve a significant amount of the current wooded area. And it is signed, sincerely, Richard Walter, Webster Citizens Action League Chair. So we have that in the record. I will give that to our secretary immediately thereafter. We've received multiple pieces of communication. I'm not going to read them all, but I will assure you that every piece of it has been made part of the record. The one that I have right here is from Mr. David Castor, 1308 State Road. Thank you for taking the time, David, to do that. I appreciate it. And we have a response from BME Associates to what we ended with last time, which were a series of questions and responses. So that's there. We have our meeting minutes from that last meeting, which I will end up asking someone to, who was here, to make a motion to adopt them as they are written or amend them as appropriate. We have a letter. Go ahead.
Mark, there's one revision to the minutes on the top of page 3. Added Bill Baker inquired about the impact of the development that it would have on Webster School. And I believe it was Jim Barbado indicated the impact would be minimal due to the fact that the residents are primarily seniors and empty nesters.
Okay, and that was to our meeting minutes or responses from the...
To the minutes.
To the minutes.
Yep.
Hold on a second, we're not through with that there. I have a couple of other letters here, one that I'm forwarding from a Link Swendrick, if I'm pronouncing that appropriately, I hope I am, and if I'm not, I apologize, thank you very much. So that's been passed out to all the village board members, and it'll be made part of the permanent record, as well as attached to that. I'm not sure why it was attached to it, but there was something from an engineering firm. Joe, what was that?
That was actually from a resident, John Terry, who's a retired surveyor.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a note that he had forwarded to us, along with the Appendix D for fire apparatus access roads.
Perfect, thank you very much. And let's see if we have anything else here. Probably not the most efficient file keeper, but I do print everything out and end up keeping it. Yes, and that was from John Terry. Okay, if we missed anything, everything that we got, I'm going to make part of the record, so it will be there permanently and be addressed. So with that being said, what I would also like to do now is see if, in addition, are there any other additions? Joe had identified one for us, and it's an addendum to it, and that was that Bill Baker had asked about the impact on the schools, and someone checked that out. Joe, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the impact was
Would be minimal. Yeah. I believe you had mentioned at Arbor Creek, you don't have any children who attend school, but they expected the same.
very good. So with that one addition or addendum, is there anything else that we would like to put into the meeting minutes for tonight? Okay, can we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion also to compliment Jo on the excellent job she did at transcribing what happened at the meeting. And I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second?
Second.
So the meeting minutes are approved as written with the one addendum of Bill Baker's statement that was
I'm referring
missing.
to the printed copy I've got right here.
Pardon me?
I'm referring to the printed copy, which includes that comment.
Okay, very good. Then the meeting minutes are approved as written, with everyone is happy with them, and I want to second what Bill said. Joe, great job on these, and thank you very much. All right, so let's get ourselves started. A little bit of philosophy here.
Yeah, we do both.
Oh, God, you're right. So we had it, we had a motion by Bill, we had it seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None, very good. So the meeting minutes are approved as written. A little bit of philosophy on my part. First of all, I want to thank everybody from the general public or the neighborhoods or the village who came to express their opinions about this. You are absolutely right. One of the last large developable, if that is a word, I'm going to use it, it's the last developable section in the village of any magnitude. And as such, we do want to make sure that it's the appropriate use of that land within the guidelines and confines that we have, because it is zoned R2. But we want to make sure that it's right. We want to make sure that the right things are there. We want to make sure that it fits in with our community. The Citizens Action League, if that was the right name of that, the Webster Citizens Action League is right. I was part of the group that wrote the last plan for the village, and walkability, I remember, was a big issue for them. But there are a lot of things to consider when we do that. So I just would appreciate everybody taking that into consideration. I'm not asking you to not be passionate one way or the other. Do what you have to do, say what's on your mind. But we don't typically get anybody at the zoning board meeting. So I appreciate you coming down. This is fun. Having said that, I'll tell you how this is going to run. I'm going to ask the gentleman from BME Associates to get up. And there were 6 items that we asked them to address in the last meeting and come back to us with responses on. I'm going to ask him to lay out those responses, maybe even give a little bit of background on it. The board will then entertain a discussion among ourselves, and then at the same time, we will hear from anybody in the general public who would like to speak for or against. Again, when you come up, go to that podium right there. There should be a little red light on so we can hear everyone. Just state your name and your address. That's all we need, just to record your comments appropriately. And with that, sir, introduce yourself again, and then let's get on with it.
All right, is that working? Do I need to tap it or?
No, that's good.
That's good?
That
All
was
right.
live.
My name is Link Sweetrock with BME Associates. With me tonight as well as Jim Barbado with Pride Mark Homes. We were here before you in December to talk about the project on the Shant property here. At that meeting, we reviewed the design, the layouts, and we took everybody's input and we did some plan revisions and provided written responses to comments that we received, and we got the variance that night on the 12/17 meeting. So tonight we're here to discuss requesting overall preliminary site subdivision plan approvals. Since the last meeting, we had provided you written responses to comments we received from the Monroe County Planning Department, Monroe County Department of Health, Monroe County DOT. We also got comments from the Superintendent of Public Works, the DES, and the New York State Department of Transportation. Those were the comments. We provided written responses, and we can certainly answer any questions on those specifically, but I think I'll focus in on the planning comments that we talked about with the board last time. So one of the things regarding the sidewalks, they talked about sidewalks. We did review the proximity of any existing sidewalks in the area. There's no sidewalks along State Road currently, and there's no sidewalks in the vicinity of the property on 250. We did look at it, and then but we are proposing sidewalks on one side of the road through the entire development and out to both roads to provide sidewalk connectivity in the development. Excuse me. We revised, one of the comments was the lighting. We revised the lighting and the lighting plan to the LED fixtures. We also provided a traffic analysis that we had a traffic engineer do that I don't think the board had last time, that we wanted to make sure we got in your hands this time. We added the sanitary sewer easement that was requested to the south to the town of Penfield, so to provide access for the future for the sanitary. We also revised the phasing, which we had discussed before about the clubhouse being constructed earlier on in construction of the community center. So we did revise the phasing on the plan to include the community center. It's not in section 1, but it's in section 2, so it'll be done earlier on in the project to be available earlier on for residents. We also added parking, guest parking through the project. We added, and I tried to highlight them on this, we added, based on the variance that you granted, the board had asked for additional guest parking through the project, so we added additional parking throughout the project based on, to make sure we have some additional parking for guests and things as they come up. So these additional few parking were added to the plan. We did revise we did review the entrance locations and how they line up with the properties across there, so that it's sort of, this is lining up with a driveway across, and this roadway is coming out right about on a property line, in between two houses on a state road. And then we also did a visualization of the sort of 180-foot units off of State Road, which I have now. I can pass those out. We basically are just showing what the unit looks like from 180 foot away, which is how far these units would be off of State Road. So we did, and then we did try to address, like I said, the DPW comments we received and all the other comments that we received. I also provided written responses to one of the neighbors who had raised some questions about some things. So I provided just some written responses to that and some additional info on why we did what we did regarding laying out the driveways with a distance apart to make sure that we're meeting fire code, and sort of the need for the second access onto 250, on access onto 250 and onto State. I can pass out that sort of that elevation showing what it looks like from 180 foot to the border, put that up as well. And I think with that, I mean, Jim and I are here and happy to answer any questions. So.
Any direct questions? And I'm sorry, was it Lynn or Link or?
Lincoln.
Link, I'm sorry, thank you.
Link or Lincoln, yep.
Any direct questions anyone wants to ask?
Well, I don't think that you mentioned number 5, which was a big concern about the trees. If you wanted to say that to the public.
The trees, that was on that letter?
Yes, you answered it on number 5.
Oh, sorry, I must have missed that one.
No, in your response to the planning board comments,
Which one was the comment? I'm sorry.
it's maintain trees around property lines for screening.
Right, so we have tried to, maintain them where we can, along the south property line, and some along, basically we'll be supplementing landscaping. We added some landscaping along State Road and some additional along 250, and we're trying to maintain some of the hedgerow to the south.
Can I ask you a question about the landscaping?
Please.
I mean, it's your.
No.
When the trees are mature, because I looked at the landscaping plan, about how tall would they get, the ones along State Road?
I'd have to look at what they are, but 40, 50 feet probably at maturity, depending on what species they are. But the landscape plan has all of the exact trees and species called out that we're planting there, and we have to do all kinds of the correct things with not putting invasive species and things and like that too.
Is it gonna be okay with the salt and everything?
Right, exactly. So that's why we pick out a specific type of tree.
Yeah.
And will responsibility then for maintaining those that get close to the road and or otherwise, that would fall to?
I would say,
Most of the
I'm
trees
guessing
are
you're not putting them in the state right away.
most of the trees are on the HOA property,
Yeah.
so they'd be maintained by the HOA.
That was the right answer, thank you. Other questions? While Michael's thinking of one, let me ask one. If I read your updated drawings properly, we added 1 5-stall, or it could be 6, not sure, somewhere up there, yeah.
Here.
1 5-stall, and then a series of tubes all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
I counted a total, if I count that right, 18 or 19?
Sounds about right. Mm-hmm. probably on the site plan.
That's all right, trust me, it's 18 or 19.
It's 18 or 19, right?
Okay,
And that's what we're anticipating based on what he's seeing in his existing now, is that he's not really, you don't really have a lot of need for the guest parking with the community center parking lot. And, because if they're gonna have an event, they're gonna use the community center. You know, we provided, you know, overfill for what we think might be
okay.
the most.
And the reason I brought it up is I was the one who asked about parking. I thought that it was a little short. I think the additional 18 look a little short to me. Do I have hard technical data to base that on? Nope. But if I look at the one that's in the northeast corner, right, we got something like 12 units there. And God help us if anybody has an event down in that area at the same time as somebody else, because it won't be sufficient. And if we think they're gonna walk all the way up to that 5 unit up there, that's not gonna happen. They're gonna start parking on the road.
Well, I might recommend that we land bank them. I don't know if this board's used that term before, but we show them on the plan and we approve them. And therefore, if they need to build them because they're seeing overflow, they have the approvals to build them. But I don't, you know, in these days and age, we're trying not to minimize building additional impervious unless we need to. And if, you know, if it's, you build a parking lot that sits there empty for ever and ever, you know, it's just, I understand your concern, but I would say, do we build them all, or do we show, you know, 5 there, and then if, once they get up and operating, if we're seeing spilling around, then you can build the rest of them. You know, we're gonna have 4 phases, so. Just a thought, we've been doing that, you know, to try to minimize, you know, putting all the pavement in up front, and then it's just sitting there, it's impervious that never.
What would be the
gets used.
determination then to put them in at a later date? Help me with the mechanics of that. Would that be the homeowners association says, hey,
Probably, yeah,
and then they would have to put the bill for it then?
right.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we're building section 1 and you're seeing it happening, before we come in to do section 2, we build them as part of section 2, or, you know.
Will, how would those be, if we're deeding over the roads to the village, right? So the village is responsible for snow removal. Would they turn their truck and go in there and try and clear it out, or would they come along the outside edge and pile it up? In other words, would they go right along the road?
Probably
Would they
HOA,
actually go
right?
in these 2-spotters?
Are you talking about the village?
Yeah.
No, we would just, only the roads would be dedicated, not the parking spaces.
We typically have a contractor do all the driveways, and if we had supplemental parking, a contractor would do the parking as well as part of the driveways,
Okay.
not the village. And just, we have a lot of experience with this type of layout. Obviously, we're right down the road with Arbor Creek, but we've done many communities like this. And if I thought there was going to be a problem in the future with lack of parking, I'd want to include it. But like Link said, we just don't see that high of a demand for extra parking. So we've added it to it because the board had it as a concern. If we do want a land bank for future spaces and future use, we're happy to. But I just don't want to put in parking, like Link said, to make a parking lot out of front yards. That's not necessary.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Michael, did you come up with one?
Oh, I got several.
Okay.
So, actually, well, my questions are sort of towards you. Has staff, or I'd say you or Jake, have any concerns with plowing and capacity and all that good stuff?
No, it would just, we would just have to change our schedule, you know, how we run the plow route, but other than that, it would take another half hour at tops.
And then, like, sewer capacity, I'm assuming?
Yep, that was all, actually, Jake spoke ad nauseam at length with Link regarding
Okay.
sewer capacity and requiring calculations.
Okay.
We did a full analysis in the engineer's report.
All right. And then, I guess, one last, has the fire department looked at this?
I gave it to the fire marshal, so the fire, and he gives it to the fire department. And if you're thinking of turn radiuses, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, because they would look at it from the perspective of the largest truck they have, which would be the
Exactly.
aerial.
Right. No, I just want to make sure they look at it and if they had any comments or concerns, so.
Well, and that brought me to the second part of that. As we talked last time, and it wasn't clear to me, we talked a little bit, I thought, about in phase one, and I can't remember who brought it up, but somebody said, finish the road all the way through and all the way around. You were gonna stop until you got to that point where you were building to make the road up.
Yeah, it's just not feasible cost-wise. He's gonna have to, you know, he's gonna build section one, he's gonna, you know, it's not gonna complete the road, but he's gonna complete all the way to that road, so section two, the road will be completed.
So, does the fire department know that? Because here's what I'm saying, you know,
Yeah.
they're gonna pull in, and they're gonna pull in frontwards. They get up to the end, if they have to go to that last house, now they gotta back out.
Well, we've got T turnarounds in the end that meet the fire code, so that they can turn around at the end and go back out.
It typically, as soon as you start hitting the wood frame construction, you have to have a solid enough surface for the fire apparatus or emergency vehicles to be able to navigate through the project. So, and that's actually in our code.
So the T-turn at the end is fine for them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, it's actually in the fire
All
code.
right.
Yeah, and that would be a temporary thing until, you know, the road is completed. Yeah.
And section two includes completing this road and the connection out to 250. So then you'd have the loop all the way around. Loop here and loop out to state to 250. So that was the sort of the changes we made in the phasing.
Other questions?
What's a natural buffer to be tiered east?
Just leave it.
Just leave it.
Just leave, well, don't mow it all the way down, leave it
Oh,
up a
okay.
little higher, because if it's mowed right to it, the geese just. So what we've been doing in other developments is just mow that one, just mow around it every other time, or raise your deck up around it and leave it just a little higher around it, and then the geese, they don't, they'll go somewhere else, but.
What happens, Carl, is if you allow the natural growth to come up, the cattails, they will grow. The geese instinctively think there's predators in there, and so they won't go in.
All right, that's a good answer.
Just don't sell the project as waterfront property. They did that at another project and it didn't work out.
Link, I guess it comes down to the wooded lot. Do you have any idea what kind of wood trees they are? I mean, is it mostly,
There's
is
a
it
lot-
ash, is it a mix, is it?
It's a lot of poplar.
Okay.
We've actually looked at it because we know there's a large woods there. And we actually looked at it, are there valuable logs or hardwood trees in there?
Right.
And there's really not much of value, it's primarily poplar.
Okay,
That's been cut down so many times.
right.
Yeah, going back through like the wetland mapping and historical mapping, I mean, you know, it's just really just growth and brush that's grown up over some time. So.
Thank you.
Other questions?
You know, within the development, you've got road like B and C. How many different street names are there gonna be in the complex? Can you-
Well, I think we'll probably try to do two. We'll probably just try to do this one as road name, and then maybe this is one road. The reason I broke it up into three is because more for engineering, because I got road profiles showing design on each one, so you can read which one, but I think we're gonna just try to make it two road names for addresses
There'll be
purposes.
Just two names?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was concerned with, identification of, for emergency calls, How many different streets are they gonna have to, you
And we'll have to submit some names to 911 to get them approved.
I know you get the names, are you gonna get 2 names approved, or is it gonna be more than 2?
I think we're gonna start with 2 unless someone tells us we have to get 3, because this is all one road, and then I think we're just gonna treat this little stub as part of this road. That would be our intent. I think less would be more, just have, for people to be able to find it and identify this as the road.
They already have names, Bill, it's Road A, B, and C.
Kind of catchy, I
I
think.
think there's gonna be a approved by Monroe County, or probably somebody's already used that.
I've seen it get filed before as Road A, B, and C.
Or County Road 23.
Yeah. I do have one more question, and this is probably for the PRC, for the construction meeting. But we'll probably have to sit down and talk about, time as far as, what time the work starts, but also traffic travel,
Sure.
how we kind of like make sure everybody follows the same route.
Yep.
We ran into some problems with projects in the past, so I just want to make sure we sit down. I'm just saying it for the public too, so that, yeah, right, Pat, so that, we make sure that we're keeping, the disturbance as little as possible.
Yeah.
Don't suppose that you can get the trash haulers to start a little later, can you?
I've threatened them.
If there are no more questions, you guys hang around, don't go anyplace.
Yeah, we'll just.
I do have one final question, just my part. If this was approved, and if you moved ahead, when are you ready for occupancy in phase 1?
If we move ahead, that we'd be doing development work, through the summer into the early fall and starting construction late summer, early fall on the first buildings, most likely. Occupancy spring of next year.
Okay. All right, what I want to do at this point is I want to open this up to comments, questions, or otherwise from anybody in the general public. We got a podium right there. Please just state your name and your address. How would it got there, Will? I'm going to miss this.
I know, right?
But, yeah, the floor is yours, please.
Seems like a long walk from my question. You said you sent the board the traffic study. The residents haven't heard that. Can you tell us about the traffic?
Sure. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't give my name. I'm Ruth Ann. Okay. I'm Ruth Ancaster, 1308 State Road. And I asked if he would repeat the traffic study for us because we haven't had the advantage of the board that had it before.
okay. I can just give you a little synopsis of, so we did a traffic analysis that was prepared by SRF and Associates, dated November 25th. They basically used the ITE trip generation manual, which is published by the ITE, and you use that to project the volume based on the property, what we're proposing to use on the property. So the ITE generates those every couple years. Yeah.
I know what ITE is. He knows what ITE is, but the rest of the people probably don't.
Just say state, federal, or county government.
It's the Institution of Transportation Engineers. And what they do is they take data from all these developments and they count it and they figure out how many trips are being generated from all these different types of land uses and what the trips are being generated. And they publish a manual. And this is the 10th edition. They update it every couple of years. And what you do is they create graphs and formulas to figure out, based on the number of units. In this instance, we use the townhouse development, and they have a data associated with all townhouse developments for a per number of units, and they create a graph, and they go based on this number of units, you use a formula, and it calcs how many trips are going to be generated from this project. So for 124, basically 124 units, they're projecting in the morning you're going to have about 13 cars entering, 46 exiting, and in the PM you're going to have about 45 entering and 27 exiting. And then what they did is we take that and we put it into the background traffic, and you see how that's going to affect the road networks based on the number of trips generation and based on the background traffic that's there. And they check the speed limit and the number of travelways, and then how many trips are allowed on that road, and then they review it based on what percentage of that is going to be added to the background traffic on these roads. And based on this analysis that they did, and once again this is available at the village, but this particular study by SRF said, given the project site traffic distribution resulting from, like I said, that ITE, the project site multiple access points, the projected site generated traffic, 45 vehicles or fewer entering and exiting the project during both peak hours, and the roadway characteristics, it's our firm's professional opinion that the proposed project will not have a significant environmental and adverse impact on traffic operations within the greater study area. Based on these conditions, no further analysis is warranted or recommended. And that's
Before you did this, you also went to the state DOT or the county DOT to see if you actually needed to do this, right?
Yep, we also coordinated with the state and the county on the need for their review, and they are going to review this for both entrance applications, because they will need to issue permits for both entrances. The state will have to issue the access permit for 250, and the county will have to issue us an access permit to State Road, and they both said, based on the trip generations that we have, that they don't require any more traffic study, because they know how the road network is operating. So they didn't require anything at the request of the village. They wanted some more information, so we prepared this and provided it for review. Did that answer?
Well, yeah, but I'd kind of like to know if those 13 cars coming in and the 45 cars leaving, are they all going to use State Road or 250? I don't think you can answer that.
No, they actually put a model on there that they do show some information towards the back of where they anticipate the distribution, but I think it was somewhat equal between the 2 points.
Yeah, it's they do it based on the background traffic.
Okay.
So if you've got this number of cars on 250, this number of cars on state, they project it by percentages of how many they think they're going to enter at both locations. I don't have the specific, but it's somewhere around 50-50, I believe. But
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was weighted one way or the other really strong.
And you made a comment, you changed the plan, but over there I couldn't see any. And how did you change the plan? Maybe everybody would like to see that.
oh, I'm sorry. Well, we added the parking spaces that I highlighted here based on the additional parking that we had. We changed the section limits because we wanted the community center to be included in section 2. So now this will be section 2, and section 1 will be here.
So you really haven't changed the
Well,
buildings?
We didn't change the layout of the buildings. We addressed other additional comments throughout, like some of the lighting things. We added some additional landscaping and things like that, which are on the whole plan sets here. So we added the easement that I talked about, the sewer easement. We added that. But they're all on different
And you
sets
said
of
you had a
plans.
paper that showed what it would look like from State Road? You were going to pass it on.
I'll pass it through out.
So the intent of this was, we were asked to show a scale of what that building would look like from 180 feet away.
Yep.
So we actually stood 180 feet away from a building at Arbor Creek, which is the same building, and took a photo and then dropped that into the subdivision plan as far as the street view.
Thank you. He and I-
Does that make sense? Just try to give a feel for the buildings from far away.
But that's basically, state roads on
It's pretty flat, yeah.
Oh, it is.
Transition, and we'll have trees
Goes
on
180 foot away, and it'll show where the entrance drive is, and then how long it's. Just to give you a perspective of how what it looks like. That's just-
For during it, keep it kind of away.
On state road, it doesn't.
No, I'm-
On 250, it does, I think, once you get, like, past the Episcopal church.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, they track where the road comes out.
Yeah, that's a good question.
What are you concerned about that?
Well, it's gonna be difficult anytime.
Mrs. Castro, do you have any other thoughts?
It should have state road. You have to go to breakdown.
The sidewalks, there's nothing about sidewalks on state road.
Designated turn lane. So even it's not like.
Say that again, to connect to third parties. So help me with the sidewalk.
I'll help you. That's the
Can you, or lean over here, so I can hear you.
Okay, there was one comment that the Webster Citizens Action Group said they wanted to connect this to the village.
Yes, they did.
But
say
if
that.
there's no sidewalks on state, it is very dangerous to walk down State Road or 250 to the village. And I still think that needs to be addressed.
Okay, help me with that, because short of in front of State Road School, there aren't any sidewalks on State Road right now.
No, there are not, and it is not a safe place to walk.
Okay, so then why would you want sidewalks? Why would you want them to put sidewalks in an unsafe situation?
Well, if there were sidewalks, people could walk down State Road. If they want to connect this to the village, there's no way to get from there except walking across State Road.
There are no existing village sidewalks for them to connect to.
True,
That's right.
So, chicken and egg.
right?
However,
However,
I was talking to Mayor, and we had this discussion regarding the sidewalks and so on, and, you know, we talked about what the future would look like, whether or not we add sidewalks to Lincolnshire, or, you know, so, I mean, it's a catch-22, you know, what I'm saying, guys, it's, there's a lot of development that, like in Penfield, where they have the developer put sidewalks down an area where there are no sidewalks, but they do that because there is the, I want to say, future intent of it continuing down somewhere, one way or the other. So,
Well, but I'd like to expand on that.
yeah, go ahead.
So. the
Why
town-
would you like to expand on that?
Well, because I work for the town.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
That doesn't make it bad.
So,
say. Yeah,
yes, we require developers to install sidewalks,
yeah.
but we also allow developers to ask for a waiver from sidewalks,
Yeah.
because there's certain neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks.
Yep.
So that waiver money is used to put sidewalks other places, so we can connect the dots that aren't connected.
So you have something in your code
Yes,
that triggers that? or whatever,
correct.
Which I don't think we do.
So generally, if this application were to come to the town of Penfield, they would probably get a waiver, but then they would provide money to the town that we would use somewhere else that has sidewalks, but need to have connections made. So, but again, this being on a county road
Yeah.
and a state road, I would be asking the county road, this is an unsafe road, what are you gonna do about sidewalks? And then being on a state road, the state wants a complete street, well, when they redo a state road, they should be providing sidewalks.
Yeah.
And the reason that I asked about the sidewalks and to help me understand that just a little bit was, like I said, short of in front of State Road School. And you can go down to Phillips and you can't actually cross because there's a signal light there and there's a walk, don't walk, and that makes a lot of sense because there's a school. That would be the only thing you could connect to because it's the only one there. And the developer has a significant piece of land that he doesn't own that we're asking for sidewalks on. And so, you know, he said, you gotta put in sidewalks. Where do they go? They don't go anyplace. You walk out, you walk down, you walk back, you walk in. And I'm by the way, big fan of sidewalks. I think they belong in neighborhoods. I think that if you have them, people are out more. And I think that anytime you get people out, it's a great place to live. It's one of the things that drew me to Webster. But I don't know where they're going. And I don't know if we don't have a commitment from the village to go anywhere with them. I think putting them inside the development makes sense, but that was the basis of my question, was I didn't know where they were gonna go. And I think we ought to have them all up and down, at least one side. And by the way, do not, Rick, put another playground right across the street from the Shantz track. My own children, you know what they'd have done, which is right straight across the street without looking. That's just my kids. But that was where I was going with that. So thank you. Other comments and questions? Sir?
Peter Elder, 59 Dunning Avenue. So I really just have a few points I'd like to bring up. The first is that it's not a big surprise. I've been involved in the village an awfully long time, and I just want to stress how critical I think it is that any development in the village be part of the village. And I'm a little distressed when I hear people talking about developing a community within our community, because this is one community. And every single subdivision in this community should connect together. That's been the historic way we've done it. When there's big subdivisions placed in the village, like on the end of Kittleberger Park, what do? We connect it in, right? There's a direct connection into the village through Kittleberger Park up to North Avenue, so somebody theoretically could easily walk from that subdivision, which is a huge subdivision, by the way, to the village itself. So I think that's a critical aspect of this. I think the site plan doesn't address that. I think it's a deficiency in the site plan that it does look like a community. But I don't think that's what we do in a village, right? I mean, if they had developed the Shantz track as a community, how would people have gotten from Judson Street up to Main Street easily? I mean, that's not the way we really do things in a village. The second thing I'd just like to point out to you is that this piece of land was actually addressed in the 2011 comprehensive plan. And it talked about first that the development would be optimal for single-family homes. And I think when the planning board is looking at this, it should think about that in terms of its density and also in terms of its design, because that really was the intent. It's actually on page 27, letter H, under other areas. It also says under I, connecting sidewalk to the existing village sidewalk system should be present in every new subdivision. Doesn't say some, it says every new subdivision, and should be on both sides of the streets when possible. And I'm not necessarily in favor of both sides of the street, because I think there's some impermeable area problems, but I do think that the state road, a sidewalk along Stray Road is appropriate, because in the future there may be connections, and it's much harder, and I think you all know this, to pay for a sidewalk in the future than it is for the developer to pay for the sidewalk now. Very hard to get it in later. So, and it's not about whether or not that sidewalk goes anywhere now. It's about where it goes in the future. And this town is developing. State Road will continue to develop. It's already developed to a large degree onto the west of this. And I think you have to recognize, or you should recognize, that there will be a time when it needs to interconnect. And this is a good start to that process. So on page 31 of the comprehensive plan, it then again goes to the talking about sidewalks. It says to incorporate them in their site design and linking to existing facilities. On page 34 of the comprehensive plan, it talks about plantings. And I just want to change the focus here a little bit. It says they're requiring a planting of 1 large shade tree for 50 linear feet for new roadway construction, requiring a planting of a minimum of 1 large shade tree per housing unit in the new residential developments. So I think we want to make sure, if we could, that the comprehensive plan is being honored there when we look at the landscape plans. And then, and again, it goes right to letter D, require the installation of sidewalks and curbing on all new public or private streets in the village. And then finally, on page 39, under natural resources, it says protect existing village wooded lots. And notice it doesn't say wood lots, which is kind of a legal term. It actually says wooded lots. So I'd like to offer to you also that in the past, sometimes when we've had developers come in, they've clear cut an entire development. And we all know what that looks like. We all know the effect that has and the perception that the public gets off of that. We really should be looking at this as how can we maximize the protection of the existing woods here, again, especially because it is in the comprehensive plan, which is supposed to be our guiding document for development. So could we possibly look at preserving some areas in here that don't have to be clear cut and all the trees removed for the future? So I just would ask you to kind of look at the comprehensive plan as your guiding document here and try to think about it in terms of how we integrate this development into the rest of the village and honor the intentions of what was come up with in 2011. Thank you.
Peter, one question for you.
Sure.
Thank you for taking the time there. Just for clarity purposes, are you speaking in favor of, are you speaking against, or the project, or are you speaking in favor of an inclusive environment that takes into account the wooded nature and
Yes.
and being careful of it?
That's number 3, but I'm actually really speaking in favor of trying to give you guys some recommendations and asking you to look at the comprehensive plan. Because I know you have a tough job. I don't underrate what you're doing up here because you have to look at all the different factors, the residents, the developer, the land itself, how the contours are, where the drainage is, all those things come into play. So I'm just asking that when you look at that, just bring the comprehensive plan in and its desire also, and the people who did this comprehensive plan, but you were there, and how they looked and how that group, which was not a small group, wanted to see this development among many others, but this is a big one, in terms of how it looks in terms of the entire village. And think about the future. Like, what does this do in 20 years? Do the residents here in 20 years feel like Main Street is a part of them? When you live on Baker Street or Holly Drive or Elm Street, right? You feel that kind of connection to this area. Will these people feel that connection? Can we make sure that maybe they do?
Don't you have to take into account the geography? This is in the absolute southwest corner of the village. And it's separated by a county road. So what you're saying is, like, your goals are laudable, but can you be a little more, how would you propose to do what you're asking?
Well,
other than the sidewalks, which, again, they only own a certain part of,
yes,
a certain amount of land along
Yep.
the state road. You certainly couldn't require them to put sidewalks on land they don't own.
Well, of course I can. And of course I wouldn't expect to. And it's a great, Don, can I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try to give it a shot.
More specific.
All right, I'll be specific. So there are grants out there for interconnecting sidewalks. We just saw 2 of them happen in the last 10 years, one on Ridge Road, one on North Avenue. There are other grant opportunities like the Safe School opportunities. The Safe School is a good example of a type of grant that could provide access down state roads since there is a school. There's also a school on North Avenue, on South Avenue, by the way, where Spry is. So both of those corridors directly connect to schools, right? So there's another grant. So, but let me go to your other point, which is pretty good too. I think a feeling of community, I think many of us live in the village, is how we project that into our developments, right? And you asked, how would this be isolated in the south? Let's not isolate it, right? Let's open it up so it's not isolated. So the people, when they come in here, realize they are part of the village. Then then that question is going to be easily answered. So specifically, it's making it so the traffic flow, the actual site plan, the actual design, the feels like a village street, feels like a village atmosphere. And yeah, there's a state road and a county road, but Phillips Road's a county road. North and South Avenue, they're state roads, right? We've overcome that when you come through the center of the village. It can be overcome. We've done it since 1905.
Do you think village feels part of the village?
I hope they do. And if we didn't have COVID, every summer there's a band that plays there. I've seen them listen to it. I sat there. You probably sat there. You've seen people in the apartments surrounding there listening to the band. It says village band when they play. So yeah, I hope they do. So.
Thank you. Other comments or otherwise from the general public? Yes, sir, Mr. Casper.
I'm David Castor. I live at 1308 State Road. I'm the author of that report, I call it, that I put together after last December's meeting, primarily to try and understand what this development is going to look like in a whole. The question that was asked about 180 feet back in the picture that was taken is inadequate. It's taken directly on the building, and it does not reflect hardly at all what you're going to see if you pick a spot along State Road and look with your full view of what you can see and how does that come out. I did a sightline analysis. Basically, that's doing just that. You put a point on the plan, and you draw a series of straight lines, and say, what do I intersect along that line? What can I see? And I'll spare you the long details. It boils down to, and understand that where I pick doesn't change a whole lot because of the symmetry of the layout. But in general, I'm going to talk about what I could see from my front yard. And the answer was a bit surprising because my lines intersected 27 garages with 23 garage doors visible from one spot. And if I move around, that changes which ones I see. And I thought, how could that be? Well, the answer is because of the way the buildings themselves are constructed. The garages are in front. Each unit is comprised of a left unit and a right unit with side-loaded garages. And then the center units, either one or two, the one across from me have two each, are front-loaded. So no matter where you move, the living quarters are behind them, hidden. You can't see hardly anything of them. Once in a while you pick up an entrance door. But from across the road, that distance or so, and then the normal field of view, not a camera shot, you see way too many garage doors. And that prompted me to call it looking like a storage unit complex. I was a little bit taken aback by that. So I went to 4 other developments that Pridemark has done and looked to see how they compare. How did he do that? Because if you go to Arbor Creek, you don't get that same feel because Arbor Creek is a linear layout. It's stretched along a road, ponds, one branch goes off to a cul-de-sac, and the top one ends in a loop. Nowhere are the buildings stacked behind each other. In this, it's clear that, in fact, no sight line that I came with went all the way through. If you stand there and look at the 1,000 feet of width of this thing, you see only buildings. You can't see anything else. If you can see between the buildings, you don't see anything except another building. Well, that's because the buildings are elevated. Remember the bedrock problem? So they excavate to build berms, put the roads on top of them, and put the houses off the edges of the berms. The backyards, such as they are, fall into the catch basins. They're not flat by any stretch of imagination. So if you look through between the buildings, there's nothing to be seen. There's no backyard. It's only space until you get to the next building. And the way the buildings are laid out, there is no line of sight. It goes all the way through. So you're left with this blob of buildings is what it looks like to anybody that's passing by or anybody that happens to live across the road. I did visit 4 other places, Arbor Creek being one of them, Hamilton Place over in Parrington, and a couple of the rental units. And basically that just agreed with whatever else I was thinking about it. If you see the others, there's garages all over the place. But what's unique about this development is it's the only one that presents 1,000 feet of on-site inhibited frontage. Every other development is hidden. The one in North Chi-Li, it's down a road with 1 unit on the left. You have to drive into it before you see the expanse of all these rental unit garages. Creek Edge, right? Creek Edge in Fairport is a similar, it's a rental unit. It's got 2 entrances. The first one comes in near a mental health care facility, and it looks like that was all built at the same time. Did you develop?
I did.
Yeah, okay. The whole thing, so, but again, you don't see the congestion until you get into it. And when you're in the development, I don't care which one it is, you're required, because you're in the middle of it, to look at the buildings from close up. You can't get back away from them and see the expanse because the building's right here in front of you. And you can see in the front of the building the detail, the doors, all the woodwork that's on them, that sort of thing. When you pull back to across the road and at that viewing distance, and look at your pictures, it's clear that the only thing that stands out at that distance is the garage doors. So again, you're looking at a plethora of garage doors, not anything that looks like homes. Then came the lighting problem. At the same time that I was doing this analysis, I ran across the number of lights involved. And I can see from, again, my house, 9 street lights, unblocked. Okay? Direct view of the street lights. There's 30 in all of it. But I can see 9 directly from my house, along with the 23 garage doors. Each have 2 lights, one on each side. That's 46 more lights, all that I can see without anything blocking. Now, there was a comment on one of the pages that was submitted about dark sky lighting, dark sky compliance. And when we brought it up in the December meeting, the comment that came back was that the street lighting was going to be just like on Dunning Avenue. Go look and see what that is. So we did. I was surprised. If that is dark sky compliant, it's pretty bright. And if that's the brightness we're going to see in this development, we've got a lot of what the dark sky people call trespass light. So then we went to Arbor Creek. And again, I was very surprised. This is after dark. All of those flanking the garage door lights are on. And this is like at 11 o'clock at night. All of them. Why are all these lights on? I mean, you could easily read a newspaper anywhere at 11 o'clock at night. Well, then it dawned on me, the target demographics. These are senior citizens. They leave their lights on for security reasons. They want it lit up. So, okay, well, maybe they turn them on. And I thought about going there at 2 in the morning and then prowling around the neighborhood at 2 in the morning is probably not the best thing to do. So I compromised last Wednesday. Yesterday morning, I got up and went there at 6:30 in the morning, still dark. Yeah, they're all still on. Well over 80% of them are still on. So I can deduce that they're probably on all night. So that's what we're facing. And now remember, this is only the front part that I can see. All the rest of this is going to have, there's over 200 of those flanking lights and over 30 street lights in this thing. It's going to be lit up like, in the report I call it a carnival midway. When I went to Redfield Grove, it was interesting. Redfield Grove is a for sale development. It's about half done or so. And you go well off of 96 on Hook Road, and then you turn into the development. And as you turn in, the units line the straight road heading west. And it's like driving into a canyon. Solid canyon on the sides. The congestion is profound. And okay, well, I hope somebody likes this look because it's not pleasing. You go down to the end of the road and it makes a hard left and turns back south. And it connects into an existing road that leads you back to 96. And along that side has all been cleared. It backs up to an older existing development. And I thought it was telling that the only thing that's been built so far is the privacy fence, the whole length of that boundary. So apparently people are clued into the visual problems that these developments where they repeat the same architecture over and over and over and over again is not a pleasing look. In an effort to understand how a development that appears to be problematic in its look, its character, how that could be allowed by zoning regulations. I looked into zoning regulations. And in general, I found a very interesting quote. It's not from our own zoning, but an internet site that talked about zoning in general. And I quoted in the report, and I quote, "The standards of the R2 zoning district are intended to maintain residential neighborhood character and ensure new development is compatible with the existing character." I think you were talking about that rather eloquently. This clearly does not. The architecture is completely different from anything nearby. It's taking the front-facing, high-peaked gable look, which is very prominent in the building industry today, apparently. Everything we see is in complete contrast with the, I've got a colonial, my neighbor's got a Cape Cod, there's a split level next to that, another Cape Cod, and a couple more colonials. It doesn't integrate at all. So the purpose of my comments altogether is, if any of the board members haven't actually gone out and looked at Arbor Creek or Hamilton Place, to look at what groups of this architecture looks like, please go look. Go look at night. It's interesting to see how much the lighting is overwhelming when you put it all together. Now, understand that it works at Arbor Creek. It is really quite an attractive development. And hats off to a really good job. The problem is you can't duplicate that on this piece of property. Imagine, as you go through and look at it, that you take the same number of units, and in fact there's 8 more units in this development than there is at Arbor Creek, and pull them all in and wrap them around each other. I've made several references to how Arbor Creek's layout is like a snake. Maybe it's got 2 heads, but it's linear, stretched out. As you go through, you can see the ponds, you can see between the buildings. No chance to do that here. It's too tight. It's a rectangular arrangement, it's nearly square. And it has an overall look of congestion. Stark congestion. Because of the repeated architecture and the way it's constructed. It does not fit. And the zoning, the R2 zoning, is supposed to make it compatible, which this is not. So if you haven't seen this other developments, please go look. See how it looks in real life.
Mr. Castor, just one question for you, and this is just for clarity on my part. I take it you are speaking against them, this particular project?
Yes, actually, I don't see how this development can be altered to make it blend in. I mean, I thought about, all right, do it like they did Bell Arbor. Everybody familiar with Bell Arbor down North Avenue and on the left, just outside the village? When they built that, they carved out of an existing tree stand, not too different from ours, not too old. You're right, the poplars are not particularly old trees in there. Some of them were pretty good size, but they're not very old. They carved out only what they needed. They left a perimeter of about 50 feet or more, wide all the way around the outside, and they left a chunk down the center. And when they built the buildings, they backed them up to that trees. So everybody's got trees in their backyard, and try as you might, you can't see that development from 250. The driveway winds in and to the left, and then oh, here's the buildings. It's masked. This is 1,000 feet wide open frontage. Not good.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, and thank you. And just your address, please?
Cindy Vanderkamp, 1395 State Road. Okay, and that's my mom, you know, she lives right smack dab next to it. Couple questions about the pond, like I drove back in Arbor Creek or whatever it is. Is it gonna be like the big pond in the back, or is it gonna be like the one that's just kinda looks like a swamp? And I know Will said if you let stuff grow up, and yeah, but if stuff grows up, you also get all the mosquitoes and, no? Okay, I have a field behind me.
No, can I address
Okay.
that real quick?
Go ahead.
It's interesting. Ponds are actually one of the reasons I believe in God. I'll tell you why. Because when you build these ponds, something magical happens. They're built for two reasons, quality and quantity. And the reason is, when you develop, when you have a development like that, they keep throwing the word impervious. Do you know what the word impervious means?
Sort of.
It means water can't go through it.
Okay.
So you got house pads, you've got asphalt, and all these things on the plan. So what you're doing is you're taking away the natural drainage of this property, which this property was pretty wet. Okay? So now you've got to make up for that. So a long time ago, the DEC in their infinite wisdom says, you know what? All this development is destroying all of the tributaries that carry our water all the way down to the lake. So we need to do something about that. And so they came up with these stormwater regulations. And within the stormwater regulations, they also came up with design manuals with all these fancy calculations that people that are paid much more than I am with a stamp put together and figure out how big these ponds need to be sized. Now this pond here is actually oversized, but that's good. It's sized for a 500-year flood, which means if this floods, everybody's in trouble. So don't worry about it going over the overflow. Worry about bailing out your house, because that's what's going to be happening if this pond overflows, okay? But back to your original question. So what happens is the natural habitat begins to form in these ponds, so you get the cattails, which you need. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't like the way they look at the cattails. Sometimes developers cut them down. They shouldn't be doing that, because the cattails actually provide filtration for the water that's leaving the pond. So what you have is, when a pond is created, you have what's called a forebay, and then you have the main pond. And the forebay, what that is, all the water comes into the forebay, and all the, if there's siltration, you know, dirt, fine particles, it goes into the forebay and then goes down. And then the water goes out over, you know, into the main pond, and then travels out into the stream and into the tributary and out, and everybody's happy. So the first thing is the cattails and the growth and everything like that, they actually provide a filter so that when the water leaves, it's actually cleaner than when it went in, amazingly enough. Now, let's talk about mosquitoes, all right? Do you ever ask yourself a question? How on earth can a pond that's isolated from everything else end up with fish? Do you know how that happens? This is fun.
Birds?
Okay.
Is it magic?
You see, this is where God comes in. Okay? And I'm saying this, everybody on live, Facebook Live, listen to me. So, the ecosystem begins to develop. You get frogs and things like that. They feed on the larvae, the mosquito larvae and so on. But the ducks, okay, geese, if it's got a lot of growth, like I said, they're not going to want to come here, you know. But the ducks, they hang out in Lake Ontario and stuff like that, and the Bay Area, and they hang out in those areas where you've got all the seaweed and stuff like that boats don't like to go. And they pick up eggs from the fish. They land in these ponds, drop the eggs in, the eggs hatch, and you have fish. The fish eat the larvae. So the pond, biologically, takes care of itself. It is so cool. Tell me there isn't a God. Seriously.
Okay, that's amazing, but it's going to be like the trees out front that are going to be 30 foot tall in, 30 years. You know, I mean, I don't want to end up with a swamp over there, and, because all my grandchildren are over in her yard, and, we just...
What is it like right now?
Well, it's cold out, so it's fine.
No, well, I mean, okay.
But,
when it rains and what is that area like right now? In the in the spring, when you get the early rain and everything, can you use that land? Is it wet? Is it? I mean,
Behind my mom's?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a ditch and the water goes running through.
right?
And my husband has taken a lot of dirt and put it behind that ditch because it was quite swampy there.
Yeah.
Because we get everything that comes over from that side.
Bingo. Guess what? What they're trying to do, and this is going to be my last hurrah, so if I'm wrong, you know where I'll be at the church pastoring, but, and you can come into my office and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, I know where you live.
Yeah, that's right, I know. Aunt Pat, I want to call her that so bad. This project, the intent of this project is to, and you guys help me if I want to speak on your behalf, but to alleviate some of that. Because if you're getting the water from this land, they're directing all the water into this pond, which is directed out into the natural spillway or the swale that goes out there and is piped out.
Yeah, and it's all gonna be piped, but who's gonna be responsible for taking care of the pipe? Like if something happens, if it backs up, if it, you know,
It's in an easement to the HOA right now.
so the HOA,
Yeah. And
We'll
to
take
answer
care.
your question, it's designed more similar to the pond in the rear than the pond in the front of Arbor Creek.
Okay.
You asked that question in the beginning, and the pond in the front is designed with just some deep channels running through, but some kind of upland, like, wetland areas.
mhm.
Whereas the other one is designed more of a deep water pond like this.
Okay, but somebody is gonna take care, if something happens to that pipe, it doesn't fall on mom.
No,
Somebody's gonna come and fix it and,
It's part of the
Do you
stormwater
have a snake? You have a
regulations.
snake, you can run through that pipe.
and my other thing is, okay, we're back to the trees. I don't care if they're poplar or whatever they are. My house is down next to the school. We built it 8 years ago, and I sit 400 foot off the road, and we saved trees. They built, they had to take some down and put in there, and I realize it's only one house, and this is a bigger development. But I agree with him over there. You've got to be able to save some, or because the stuff you're going to plant isn't going to look like anything for 20 years. Because we all know how slow trees grow and everything. And just because it's a poplar or something and they're not hardwoods, doesn't mean they don't block some of the view. And, not every tree has to be an oak or something. It's the old growth. You go through new neighborhoods and you can tell. It's like, oh my God, this looks terrible. Obviously, this used to be a woods or a farmer's field or something, and they plopped some houses and they put some cute little bushes. And it looks ugly for years and years and years, it's just, it doesn't fit. It's like you just picked something up and slapped it there and got rid of, nature is pretty, and just to like put up a block of houses or a block of, like he said, it's just, you should be able to leave some of it, even if they're not the prettiest things. It's still like what the land's supposed to be, kind of the, I don't know, it gives it some class. It just doesn't, just don't chop everything down because it's not a valuable tree or it's not a specific one, or we're going to plant more, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of looks like hell. So
the reason we cut down trees is more to solve the drainage issues than it is just to cut down the trees.
yeah, but I went through Arbor Creek or whatever it was, and I noticed most of those, like you said, are built up, and the backyards go down, and then they do have some wooded areas around behind them and that.
And mostly it's ash, because I keep having to cut them down because they're all dying.
Well,
So I keep going there with crews because the ash just keep dying, and people are afraid they're going to fall on their houses.
well, trees fall, but, you got to leave something.
So wait, hold on.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your comments. So for clarity purposes, for us, are you speaking for or against the project?
against.
Or are you speaking for, I don't want to make it sound bad, but speaking for nature and preserving what we
Yeah.
can?
Okay. We moved to State Road when I was 12 years old,
Okay?
okay? That was a long time ago.
Not that long.
Yeah. A long, long time ago. And it's always been just a field. And obviously my family, we have the big field back there, and, I like the open spaces and everything. I used to live in Peter Elder's house. had sidewalks and everything. But it's nice to be out where there's trees, and so I just think if they're gonna do something, I don't want anything to go there, but if they have to put something, like he said, you know, make it look, so we're not sitting at the road going, oh my God, look at, there's just buildings. There's just, they don't fit in with the houses, they don't fit in with the neighborhood. Leave trees up in the front, even if they're little scrub brush, who cares? Just make it so you're not just seeing a row of buildings across, like the ones they just built on Phillips Road, up by Ridge Road. They're ugly, and if you drive around behind them, the driveways, hopefully these guys have longer driveways, there's a truck there that has 3 inches from the garage and 3 inches from the road. The plow goes by, he's gonna lose his truck. And everything is just all the same and all, I don't know, there's no personality, there's no difference, they're just little boxes and, you know, a few cutesy little trees and nothing that just came up by its own, you know, wills nature and God and everything. There's nothing, it's just, okay, we're gonna put this here and we're gonna put that there and wipe out everything that came with it. You know.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are they occupied?
Pardon me?
Are they occupied?
Is what occupied?
The development on the corner that you were just referring to?
On Ridge Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Okay, so obviously people want to live there.
I have
How
no
bad- How
idea.
bad can it be?
I have no idea why they'd want to live there because, like I said, if we get a winter storm or anything, I think a lot of their cars, there's already, somebody already backed into one of the garage doors and they had to replace it. But,
I know the story behind that.
okay, it's just, I don't know, some people, I guess, don't care if they're individuals or, you know.
Fair enough on the driveway length, and on that one, I brought up that very same concern right out of the box, because I know the driveways you're talking about. These are longer,
That's
much
good.
longer, and I don't think that we have that issue there.
That's good. And wait, one more thing, the
Sure.
traffic, ever since they built the Arbor Creek, there is more traffic. At certain times of the day, I have a hard time getting out of my driveway, and that's not even when school's in session. But sometimes, thank God I have a turnaround, I don't have to back out. Because some days you sit there and you sit there and you sit there, and it's gotten worse since they built down there, so. I don't know if they all leave at once, or,
I believe you that at times of the day, there probably is increased traffic, I do.
quite a bit, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to see if there's any other comments.
Rick Walter, 20 Elm Street. I want to go back to what I brought up the last time, the sidewalks. If they could extend them on 250 as far as their property goes and along State Road, I agree with Peter and that these sidewalks would help. The town just did a major sidewalk all the way down Ridge Road on a grant. So if they extend there, maybe in the future, the town and the village can extend these sidewalks so they get to the school and so they get down into the village. We should plan for the future, not what we can get away with today, but what we plan for the future. I know at my age, I probably won't ever see it, but I'd like to have the next generation have this available for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes. Why don't I let this gentleman go first, and then we'll finish up with you, David.
My name is John Carey at 1155 Webster Road. Got a few things here, mostly engineering-wise. I'm the one that didn't like the fact there was only one entrance on State Road, but I guess I can't help that. And also, the entrance on 250, I didn't like because I thought 250 was too crowded. Also, the fact that with the 250 entrance, the road's going to go up a pretty good grade or so to get those house pads, first 10 or 12, 14 house pads about 10 foot above the ground. I didn't like that. However, engineering-wise, it was the only thing they could do because they got the house pads high enough so the basements are above the wetlands, so that does make engineering sense. The fact that what that gentleman was talking about, is it Mr. Casper, is it?
Castor.
Okay, Casper. I can understand that because this whole project is designed with the houses well above ground, or quite high above the ground, and the low areas are for walkout basements. So if you can do anything with keeping trees there, you got to put them in the lowland areas because the houses are above everything. So Mr. Castor has a good point there. You're looking at everything, all you see is houses. I'm not sure how you can change that unless you change the whole design of the road. Obviously, when you get a project like this here, most of the trees are poor quality, poplar trees and shrub grass. So it does make sense to take all the trees out and clear cut everything basically and start with any new growth, a better quality tree. The sanitary sewer stuff to the south, is that to Penfield, is it? Is that what you're designing?
Yeah, that's what they're asking.
But that's gonna be, they can't do that gravity-wise, right?
That's a pump.
That's pump station, all right, okay. How about selling topsoil? You gonna sell any topsoil?
Don't plan to.
Because that's one thing I always hated, is when all the topsoil disappears and people are left with 2 or 3 inches of topsoil for their lawn, which is not really very acceptable, good grass. But that's a concern about not having enough trees to block the vision of the houses and garages there. I've been involved with project all my life for development, and the thing we always envision is any kind of a project that's here, the environment will change. And most of the time it takes 20 years, but it will change. So my feeling is I would just soon have no project, but if the development feels as though the economics make sense, I guess it's okay. Just as long as people are in agreement. So I'm right in the middle.
Fair enough. Well, John, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate them.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Patty Kleinhammer. I'm Dave's neighbor. And I just want to say that I was not pleased when, I don't know your name, but when you said, well, did those buildings sell? And I thought, this is Webster. I moved here because I wanted to see trees and I wanted to see nature. And now all I'm going to see is garages. Please, in the age of climate change and all the things that are happening, why do we allow 44 acres, even if they're not nice trees? Why do we allow 44 acres of trees to be knocked over, done away with? And when I looked at the landscaping plan for this project, when it's done, there'll be 90 trees planted. And I just want you guys to think about it. It's just, we're giving up 44 acres of trees for 90. Is that what Webster's about? I don't make the decisions.
What was your name again?
Patty Kleinhammer.
Patty, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And obviously I'm a...
I did get that.
Just in case I wasn't clear.
All right. Mr. Castor, did you want to reload?
We'll introduce something that I had thought about including in my topic when I talked a while ago. And that's God. He didn't even look up.
Oh, no. Sorry.
What God was looking.
Amen, brother.
It was brought up about what the history of this piece of property was. And prior to Chance developing this whole corner of the village back in the late 50s and 60s, this piece of property wasn't even part of the village. It was annexed in order to be included in this development. It got stopped, and then it was rezoned, and that development didn't happen. And apparently there was a rezoning that I didn't even know about, and I'm not quite sure why, because I'm sure there were no signs and there were no letters sent out, but someplace in the middle 2000s, it was rezoned again. Perhaps we should consider the fact that the bedrock is there, and all the attempted development of this project, of this property, has been blocked because God doesn't want us to build anything on it.
Oh, Will, now God's against us.
You know, it's like, so Will, how do we get God to buy it? So it doesn't get developed.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Question here, does anybody else have any comments?
I do.
I was going to come down to you in another minute or two, but.
Okay. My concern, and Larry says.
And for those of you who don't know, Carl Lauer, he is the board's liaison. He is one of our village trustees, and he's the liaison to the board for us.
I'm a little concerned about turning left onto Route 250 out of the road there. Turning left would be dangerous anyway. Like if you're, is that right at the spot where the speed limit changes from village speed limit to state speed limit?
Right around there.
And so you got cars that are speeding up going south and slowing down going north. And that Route 250 is very busy, a lot, all the time. And so I'd be a little concerned about elderly people turning left onto 250 from that road. And State Road is busy too, but that's far enough back from the light. But as I look at that, to me, that's a dangerous situation.
You speaking for, against, or just pointing out a safety issue that you think needs to be addressed?
I wish you didn't ask me that.
Fair enough. I won't ask you that. Does anyone else have any comments about this for tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just one more question.
Sure.
Is there any way that everybody here could get like a new drawing so we can have it to look at? And, you know, we have one of the original ones, but it would be nice to have an updated version to, you know, so when we go home to talk about it and everything, we know what we're looking at.
What are we talking about here? Which drawing? Because
Well,
I got pictures.
Well, this,
no,
not the pictures.
I got 3 or 4 books of these at home.
This new updated one, you know, like the original picture we have, the pond was somewhere else. And now the pond is up front, and now that's the one, I think, from December. Now this is the one from this meeting.
Okay, so for lack of a better term, and you guys tell me, is that a footprint drawing, an overhead view, I think is what we're asking for?
The rendering?
Okay, if that's what you want to call it.
Whatever it is.
That one's different than the original.
No, this one's different, right?
No, not as far as the footprint. The
No, not the
footprint's same.
footprint, but
No,
where they
the only
moved
thing they
things.
added was the parking spaces.
How's that?
Well, yeah, okay, sure. Because when you
Okay.
try and print it off a computer or something,
Is that
it's-
something that we can get, do we print these? I don't know what
They
we
can make a
have.
Freedom of Information Act request with the village hall, and they can go in and get a copy. The village doesn't, you know, as the village attorney, you know, I suppose the trustees can decide they want to hand out stuff for free, but They make a Freedom of Information Act request, you go up to the village hall and it's 15 cents a page. You can just get one page and then go make copies yourself.
Maybe we could figure out, Joe, maybe we could figure out a way to get these, get a few copies of these so that we could have them at the village hall.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Good,
There
thanks.
you go.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? And by the way, call the village hall, your village office before you go, because Joe likes to know who's coming in and make sure you got a mask and everything. People show up at the door like me, she kept me standing outside for a long time. But, other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Castor.
Jim, we were over at Hamilton Place and we saw the trees that were in front of the houses. And they weren't very big. Is that what you envisioned for this? I mean, they were more twigs stuck in the ground as far as I was concerned.
I'm not sure which trees. I mean, the trees that are in the landscaping itself or the trees along the road.
The trees in front of their townhouses.
I mean, the trees in front of the townhouses are probably 2.5 or 3 inch caliber trees, which are typically what are planted.
So they were no bigger than 5 feet high, I don't think. Maybe.
Are we talking about pine trees or deciduous trees?
Not deciduous.
Deciduous? Yeah, they're taller than 5 feet, obviously, but they're 2.5 to 3 inch caliber trees.
But they don't look like these trees, right?
Yeah, that's pretty similar to what they look like.
But these look like they're taller than...
Well, I mean, you can, with the age, I mean, you don't plant large trees on a large scale, obviously. Can I make a couple comments?
Sure, yes.
Just, I mean, obviously, you know, people prefer to see open space and land when they live across the street from it, I understand that. And obviously, I'm a developer, and that's what we do, is develop homes that people live in. And people complain sometimes about the new homes, and everybody's home was new at one point, whether you built it or bought it from somebody else. And we're working on a piece of land that is zoned for townhouses, and the zoning allows for 8 units per acre. We didn't set that, the village did. We show about 3 units per acre. There's a lot of discussion about seeing the buildings from the front, and one of the things that we did in the layout was we didn't want to put the backs of homes facing the road for everyone to look at, because the front elevation is nicer than the rear. So we purposely wanted to be inclusive to the village and wanted to be a part of things and wanted to open it up and not try to wall ourselves in with the backs of buildings. So that's why you see this green space and this green strip with no homes on it in the front, because we wanted to look good. And we wanted to show trees in the front with front elevations in the background versus just showing you the rears and the decks of these buildings. So that was on purpose, that we tried to open it up and be a part of what is the village and community. And I recognize that this was annexed because it wasn't a part of the village originally, and it got pulled in. It's separated by a busy Route 250 and a county road, state road. So it's not part of the core of the village per se, it's on the outskirts, on the edge. You know, but we're building homes that people want to live in. We're meeting a need of our aging population. We didn't build Arbor Creek and sell 25 units a year of homes that are averaging over $300,000 because people don't want to live there, or they think it's ugly, or they think it's horrible. We're proud of what we do, and we work hard at it. And we provide a community for very happy customers and residents that live there and make it their own community, and they're a part of Webster. Maybe they came from all over the place, but now they're a part of the town of Webster. And that's what we're doing. So it's hard to sit here and just listen to everyone bash what we do, because at the end of the day, I have some wonderful people that have built homes with me. They're thrilled about it. It meets their lifestyle. Their kids are grown. They're out of the house. They're empty nesters. And they want to live in a community where they have this style of housing, low maintenance, a new home, energy efficient, nice open floor plans, a community center where they can gather with neighbors and make it a part of something. So I understand that we'd all rather see trees. I love nature. I love to hike. I love to do other things. I'm not a developer that loves to just cut down trees because I think it's fun, but it's part of development. And to make drainage work, we have to remove trees. We plan to do landscape plantings that are tasteful and that make sense, and we want to be a part of the neighborhood. So we're not trying to come in and do something bad here. We're going to move some lovely people into town that are going to enjoy this area, and maybe it's people that are already in the village of Webster that want to stay, but their current house doesn't meet their needs. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. and we're staying within the zoning that the code calls for. We needed one significant variance, which we got last week, that was just the length of our driveways. Everything else, as far as traffic, we went with New York State DOT, County DOT, they have no concerns. We hired a traffic consultant that reiterated that there's no concerns. I understand everyone feels like it's busy, but evolution is that there's more and more cars on the road, there's more drivers, that's just reality. It's not just us. And if an intersection is hard at a certain time of day, then people are going to choose to go up to the other entry and use the traffic light. They're going to create their own patterns that make sense for them. So I understand the concerns and you'd rather see it vacant. Our goal is to build a quality community that we're going to be proud of and you're going to be proud of, people are going to want to live in. And then also to not have a negative impact. We don't want to cause a traffic problem. We studied that and we've proven that we aren't going to cause a traffic problem. We don't want to cause a drainage problem. We're actually going to fix the drainage problem that goes towards your property. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to accomplish. And as I sit here and we work hard and link designs and we try to meet all these standards, and then everyone just looks for any negative, you gotta look for the positives. And the fact that we take a risk in buying land and developing this on the knowledge that people want to live here. And it's the type of house they desire to stay in town. So we have an aging population in this area and they want to live in a home like this. And they're going to call it home someday and be proud of it. And it'd be a shame if they sat here and listened to how people felt about them moving here someday. A lot of conversation about sidewalks along the road. You know, I understand that you'd like to see sidewalks. Right now they go from nowhere to nowhere. And you talk about grants. You know, everyone talks about affordability of housing, right? You want to go spend over $75,000 or $100,000 on sidewalks? All that does is put the burden on not me. I pass it along to the person that wants to live there, right? So everyone wants to be more affordable. How do we say more affordable? We don't sit in meetings and just throw out ideas that just cost the future resident money unless it's well thought out. Those sidewalks should be done by grants from the state or the county or government money where it's shared by everybody, and maybe not even from the area, but from all over the state. That is not just shared or put the burden on these few people that are going to live here relative to the rest of the people that want to use them. So, I mean, I felt that I had to make some comments because we give our presentation, and then you sit back and listen, and you know, we do our best to put a quality project in front of you. We've been successful for a lot of years, and you can drive around the communities, whether you like them or not. People love them that live there, and they've been good, safe communities of homes that people want to live in. So, I just wanted to make those points. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And as I said in the beginning,
and I'm for the project.
Very good. As I said at the beginning, what I didn't want it to do is to degenerate in any way into a discussion where people left here and thought that they weren't heard. So if people wanted to talk for another hour, I would probably let them too. I also understand your position. The property is zoned for this use. I do believe that you may have solved a chronic water problem or flooding problem, whatever you want to call it. You may have solved it with the mother of all ponds, believe me. And you may have taken some other things. But I think that in deference to the people, these are the people who put their lives into the community. They're going to ask questions, and they're going to try and understand what kind of an impact it's going to have on them. We all understand the demographics and everything else that's going on, and not just Webster, but America. But don't anybody go away feeling like you weren't heard, or that anybody is attempting to shout anybody down or make you feel bad. I think you did do a nice job.
No, I understand all your concerns. I'm not insensitive to that. I understand that you live there and you look at woods now and it's a major change. I get that, and this is what we do for a living, and you don't have that happen every day. So I'm not insensitive to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Now, as I sit here, and I've tried to put myself in your position, I've put myself in my position, I've put myself in everybody except Carl's position. And I hear two major concerns. One came down to sidewalks. On one hand, they go nowhere. And that's my right hand, that's my logical hand, it's like a bridge to nowhere. The sidewalk goes to nowhere. On my other hand, I listened to folks like Peter Elder, and, you know, he might be right. We don't have everything in place right now, but if you start something now we got something to connect to. Now, maybe in a few years, but put it in. The other part was, go ahead.
Can I interject one question? The question. The roads are intended to be dedicated within the subdivision.
Front.
Potential sidewalks installed now become whose responsibility to maintain?
The village.
The village. So now the village snowplow guy has to jump onto a dead-end sidewalk to plow to the dead-end sidewalk, down State Road and down 250. And potentially sometime in the distant future, grants may or may not be available to connect and build more sidewalks.
He's gonna have to go into the subdivision to plow the ones that are there right now anyhow.
Yeah, which sidewalks are you talking about? Within the development?
No.
Or the ones on
I'm
250
talking
at
about
State Road?
sidewalks that would be put,
Well,
that
the
everyone's allowed.
one on 250 is not within the village, so the village is not gonna come down there and plow that little sidewalk that goes nowhere along 250.
Okay.
And State Road, that's within the village, so I suppose the village will have to go and plow that sidewalk.
But they have to go into the development right now if there are sidewalks on one side of the street anyhow.
Well, are the sidewalks in the
That's true.
subdivision
Okay.
part of the village?
If they're gonna,
If they're in the right of way.
if they're built in the right of way, which I believe these are, the village will plow it.
Okay, so where I was going with this, the other comment I heard a lot of was landscaping, clear cutting, trees, poplars. Poplars are personal opinion. Wait, go ahead, you got
Can I
something.
just add one thing before you leave sidewalks? Does it make sense for us to just provide an easement along the frontage?
Maybe.
For future considerations, when it gets down to whenever grants are given or whatever, does it make sense for us to provide does it make sense to just provide a 10-foot sidewalk easement along the frontage so that we've provided with this project the means to build that sidewalk at some point? But, we don't really see the need to buy, to build it at this time because they don't go anywhere, but then, it's starting to put the puzzle together for the village as you go, then now you have that sidewalk easement available to put a sidewalk in someday when it becomes,
To me,
when it makes sense.
That's a little bit forward thinking that says we may want to at some time, we'd like to have the ability to do that at some time. Peter, that doesn't get the sidewalk in there, but does that move you closer?
It would be a compromise. I could see that as far as a municipal kind of thing.
Okay.
The only thing, of course, is that initially the developer bears the cost of the sidewalk, although you do pass it on to the homeowners. But in the long run, it's the village that would bear that cost.
Okay.
So
Hear me out here on the final part I was trying to get to. I was leading up to it. It was kind of like Will talking about the creation story with fish. The other comment I heard was the clear cutting, the poplars, this tree, that tree, elevations, what it protects us from right now. Somewhere in our code, and I'm going to look to Will and maybe Don to help us out here, it allows for, because I don't think I'm qualified to make this decision, but I know that you've done something. You've given us a landscaping plan. I don't know if it's different than what it was, the first one you gave us. To me, gee, look, there's a tree there. That's how, But I don't know whether it will solve the problems of lighting. I don't know if it will solve a problem in 5 years. I don't know if we're planting the right things in the right locations, making the right berm. Somewhere in our laws and rules and codes and statutes, it says we have on retainer, and that's a loose term because I think it all ends up getting passed on. But we have a landscape architectural firm that we could have review this and say, in general, well, nobody's gonna get everything. But are we doing the right thing that we can do right now so that as this development, if you will, grows, we get the beautiful trees, we get the right kind of trees. We don't have something that dies in 30 years or a softwood that's really gonna fall over in the first storm, I don't know.
Well, we have a landscape architect prepare the plan.
I understand that, and the landscape architect worked for you.
Right, I'm not saying you don't want to review it, but I mean, he doesn't want to propose something that's not gonna work either, because when we post a letter of credit, you're gonna have it'll have like a 2-year guarantee on these trees.
Okay.
So if the tree dies within a couple of years, it's on,
Well, my thought
it's on
process was.
to go back in and
My thought process was going something like this, and this is an open discussion for the board here, by the way, please. Do something about the sidewalk, I don't know what it is, I kind of, my limited understanding, the easement gives us the right, but not the obligation right now to do anything, and we could, if we wanted to, at a later date, if we got a grant, if we got money falling from heaven or whatever, we could put in the sidewalk then. If we decided, as Will said, there's been some preliminary discussions, no promises, we want to put a sidewalk all the way down one side or the other side of State Street. At least we've got the right to go there at the starting point. That's number one.
That's what the easement would allow.
That's what the easement will allow.
It makes it easy.
It's kind of like a stock option. It is the right, but not the obligation.
Correct.
Can I add on to that though?
Please do.
I agree with the easement idea because frankly, I hate sidewalks that lead to nowhere. I really hate them because we've had projects that 10, 15 years, I'm still staring at a sidewalk that goes to nowhere.
Yep.
So I hate that. I love sidewalks. I live in the village, obviously. My street does not have sidewalks. So, I have to walk down the road to get to the sidewalk, to walk to wherever I want to go. So I'm used to not having a sidewalk already and walking in the street. But anyways, my question to you guys is there a possibility that maybe we add another sidewalk at the north west corner that kind of maybe ends right in front of Lincolnshire Road?
Or there?
Yeah, so that...
In other words, extends it out?
Well, yeah, kind of like a little finger that you could walk around the bar retention area, and then maybe it ends at Lincolnshire. So you're inviting people from Lincolnshire, because Lincolnshire doesn't have sidewalks either.
No.
And I've walked down that road several times.
We can just.
And then you can cross over State Road, and then I could walk in this whole development, and then walk back out through Lincolnshire.
And so that's in addition to the easement along State Road?
And the easement, because then eventually,
Okay.
that's just my personal opinion.
Are there sidewalks at Lincolnshire?
No, there is no
No,
sidewalk.
no.
But at least that would give.
Set us up for it, is what we're asking.
Well, what I'm looking at is I could walk down Lincolnshire, down the road, and then I could cross over and walk on sidewalks that then promotes these people that live here to maybe do the same thing in reverse and then walk down Lincolnshire into the village, and they're not on State Road, they're not on 250.
It goes somewhere.
Right.
Sooner.
Well, I wouldn't even know village, Jim.
Run the easement the whole way and run the sidewalk from here to here?
No, I'm thinking you go from like road B in the corner there, and then, just kind of meander it around.
I guess you could do that. I wouldn't see the town plowing a sidewalk that came in.
Well, but I could see the town or the village
doing that.
using that to get into the development. They could go down Lincolnshire.
But you don't want it to go to the little stub here, you want to cut through here?
Yeah.
Right.
And then
Bring it right
eventually,
between
when the
two
sidewalk.
two buildings.
Like a little spur sidewalk spur along the driveway into the unit.
Right. That makes sense.
Michael, I like the idea better of doing it here.
So my opinion, well,
Because if you do the sidewalk, easement the whole way, you know what, from here to here, Since someone comes in front of the community onto the sidewalk, and they go where they want. They could do that if you want. I'm just thinking this would be a shorter route than doing this. Yeah, but the little bit of savings of footage, I'd rather not feel like you're running through a side yard that feels kind of weird versus coming into the entry of a community. I guess you just gotta be wary of where these trees are, you know. I mean, that's my suggestion, is at least you get somebody to go to Lincolnshire, because
Yeah, I think we can.
I'm more comfortable walking down a side road than on 250.
Mrs. Cassidy, just hold on 1 second here. If I don't finish this, I'm never gonna get to it. And what I've been trying to get to is the landscape architecture. I know they had a licensed landscape architecture person put that together. And I do not question the integrity of it at all, but what I'm saying is that person worked for them and did what they said. We have a budget line someplace that says we can do this. We're supposed to have somebody, for lack of a better term, on retainer. I don't know who, it's kind of had this conversation with the finance person today. I said, I don't know who's gonna pay for it, but I'm telling you, you gotta do it. Why don't we bring them in with a short list of what our concerns are, particularly along State Road, and say, is what we're proposing here the right thing to do, or is there another option that you can see? Berms, trees, different types of trees, quick growing silver maple, I don't know what it is, I really don't. But that's why we would bring them in, and then they would, you know, deliver to us the report, which would end up being paid for, I think, by them.
Mr. Chairman, are you recommending to the village that we retain an arborist to review the plans and make recommendations?
I am recommending this board make that recommendation, or tell me I'm crazy and go away.
Well, don't open that door. In the subdivision portion of our code, 137-8F, it says this, just so you are right. It says planting, adequate tree planting appropriate to the individual lot and integral to the comprehensive benefit of the whole area shall be completed by the developer. Tentative location and species which shall conform to the recommendations of the village arborist will be indicated on the preliminary plan. Street trees shall be a minimum of 35 feet apart, blah, 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 and it gives a few more other things. But yes, in our code, it allows us to retain an arborist to review the plan.
Do we have an arborist, Will?
We do, not one that's in-house, obviously. I think, depending on the year, I'm not sure, it might be birch crest this time around, so. But he's not a design architect, or excuse me, a landscape architect.
Oh, no, I don't think that would do it. That's not what I had in mind.
Yeah.
Oh, you want a landscape architect?
Yeah.
An independent.
Or suggest something else that might take into consideration some of the other people's ideas, or tell us why those are not feasible. Carl, we got a line item for that?
No, there is no line.
Darn!
But still, just because the code, just because the section Will just read used the term arborist, I think you could substitute landscape architect for that, and the cost, hopefully it's reasonable, it's passed on to the applicant.
I'd like to ask the rest of the board, what do you think about that? Because I look at it, like I said, oh, look, there's a tree there. I love trees. And that's about all I know.
But you need to develop, you know, the guidelines or what you want them to look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's on us.
Somebody's gonna have to put that in writing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna come in here and just have like a meeting of you guys and, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So who's gonna do that?
I think Michael and myself and anybody else who wants to join us are going to do that.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, where was that in the book?
That is section 137-8F.
What do we think about that, just the rest of the members, and can we, Don, do we give preliminary approval contingent, or isn't that a possibility?
No, you can attach conditions to a preliminary approval. So you could make it subject to, you know, whatever recommendations the landscape architect may have, if any.
I guess the question I would ask you, Mark, is from what perspective are you looking at the landscaping? In other words, are you looking at it from the perspective, are they hardy enough to survive our climate in its particular location, like I mentioned earlier about salt or whatever? Or are you looking at someone to say, you know what, they could have more trees here, they could do something different here? I mean, because you could it's like opening Pandora's box. It's like having another architect, landscape architect or whatever, come in and redesign the whole plan according to their subjective view.
It's not gonna be what I'm asking them to do. I'm very focused on the view from State Road. Have we done everything we can possibly? And I don't know yet how to put it into words, but I'll know it when I see it. It's kind of one of those kind of things.
Okay.
But I think we have an obligation to make sure that if this project is going to go forward, it has that best possible opportunity to have a pleasing view for the folks that are going to either drive by it or sit on their front porch and look at it. Because that's been a major concern that we've heard there, and that and the sidewalk, and I think we've got the sidewalk settled.
So you're just saying from the state road perspective then?
Say what?
Just from the state road side?
Michael?
For the sidewalk?
I would,
No. For
you
the
know what,
landscape.
I would say
Well,
that's from the state road side, yes, that's my major concern.
Okay.
But oh my goodness, take a look at the whole thing. Is this crazy to do? Are we gonna, I don't want them to redesign the whole thing. They don't want them to redesign the whole thing. And that's not what we're trying to do here.
Right, and that's my whole point. What are you trying to do?
So
Make sure that it's the best possible stuff that gives the greatest view and least impact on the neighborhood environment, or however I decide to say it. Michael, say something.
Well, no, so my question to Will is it somewhere in the code, does it say 1 tree per lot? Or no trees per lot?
It was just that section he just
Yeah.
read.
Yeah. Street
I
trees.
heard that they shall just be consistent with.
Street trees shall be a minimum of 35 feet apart. And then trees shall not be less than 1.5 inches in diameter at the base at time of planting. They shall be planted in the lawn area within 10 feet of the street line. Trees must be adequately supported by guy wires until firmly rooted.
So that's old.
Well, that's just in the,
I know, but that should be updated.
that's why you're here.
So,
I don't know if there's anything, Joe gave everybody a copy of the village's design guidelines of a little
That was the
while ago.
one that wouldn't print for me.
I don't know if there's something in there about
I'm
trees.
not, right, I don't remember the tree yet, but I'm generally, I'm more worried about maybe the number than what he's proposed. I'm comfortable with what he's proposed as tree types and this and that. My concern is if there's something in the code that says, for instance, Penfield has 2 street trees per house. Now, most of the time when somebody develops you buy a new house, they don't want the trees. So we tend to push the trees to kind of create a buffer. So that's why I was wondering if in the village code, we have a requirement that every new lot is required to have at least 1 tree. But with the street tree every 30 feet, it really doesn't work for me.
No.
So, I think they've done an excellent job of trying to buffer the people to the north. But if money was no object, they could plant more. But to me, what are you gonna hold them to? We don't have a standard we can hold them to. Yes, and they're only 2-inch caliber trees. Yes, they're gonna take 15, 20, 30 years to mature. But I'm worried about when we clear cut this and try to select here and there and do this, those trees aren't used to the wind loads that the outer edges are. So you take away the outer edge of the trees, those inner trees are not used to that, they're gonna fall over. They're gonna cause other issues. And plus, the way this is designed, it's raised up so that you can't even, keep those trees because then you couldn't build it.
So what would be your suggestion alternatively? I'm open to
This
it.
is my opinion, is, they're proposing, I forget what I added it up to, it's like, 80 trees or whatever.
Mhm.
So, to me, I would, is there some happy medium that we could say we almost have, and I'm not saying we have to have, but, 124 trees on the site, one for each unit. I'm not, that'd be great, but is there something that maybe somewhere in between, or we can, and then just apply those to State Road and add more buffer there, because I think that's what they're all concerned about.
We also, go ahead.
Just a quickie here.
Yeah.
I was concerned, I would think 1 or 2 trees in front of each unit isn't gonna be as effective as if some trees got thought about right at State Road, right in front of the boat. Make that a concern there if you wanna hide the actual view of the houses.
How do you guys feel about that, just as generally listening?
Well, I missed what his comment was.
Instead of 2 or 3 trees per unit there, I would thinking about putting some trees right at State Road and buffer that a bit.
But right now, it shows 15 trees along State Road. If I was really right on that border, I would just add another 10.
I was gonna say, much more sense to do something there.
Add another 10 along State Road, and that's a lot, that thickens up significantly from what's there now. And,
Because what we've tried to do is cluster these trees like in between these units. So we've got like 3 trees here, we've got 3 trees here, we've got 3 here.
there's some pines, some deciduous.
Also,
Arborvitae or some pine trees, some of that.
Yeah, well, I like to mix in some pines just so when the leaves are gone, you still have the green. But, I mean, if we want to just say that we add 10 more trees along State Road, just if that's the concern, that makes sense to me. I don't think we have to overcomplicate it. If we want more trees along State Road, let's just pick a number a little bit. Instead of getting someone to study it and go round and round, let's just say we want more on State Road.
But then you just gotta be careful about where you want, if you're gonna do a sidewalk.
some maples, some.
You're running out of real estate right there because all the utilities, you're not gonna plant where the utilities.
You don't want to plant the trees in the sidewalk.
You don't want them in the right of way or whatever we want to call it.
Right, and you don't want them in, if they're willing to provide the sidewalk easement, which they sound like they are, you don't want them in the sidewalk easement either, because then you gotta come down and just put the sidewalk in.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Since you run for both.
Can you guys address that?
We could have their landscape architect put 10 more trees along State Road. I'm sure we could figure that in sidewalk.
Wait a second. Making sure that he takes into account that you're gonna give up an easement.
Yeah, we'll have DME put a sidewalk easement along the entire frontage and 10 more trees
That would be a total of 25 trees now.
over the 15 that are there.
Oh,
25 total.
Yeah.
25 total.
Total.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Castor, what did you think about that? I mean, you talked an awful lot about the garage doors and some of the other things that you were gonna look at. Nothing is gonna change that right away,
Exactly.
but you give it time. I mean, we can't bring in a 30-foot tree. It just, that's not gonna happen. But I'm trying to figure out something that would.
The only really reasonable
foliage-based blockage I can think of is leaving enough of what's there. So that when it in the springtime, when the leaves come out, it's pretty dense in there. That would provide a blockage that, you could say, kind of like what we got now. No, they aren't beautiful. I'm not trying to sell that. It's what behind it that I don't want to see. The other thought about that was, aren't there depressions
Because we're dealing with.
along that whole,
Yeah.
I'm
We're picking up the drain.
We're trying to see from here, I can't see the.
Yeah, there's drainage swale.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of depression. At first I thought there was a berm there. And then I started reading the elevation lines and I wait a hole. I think it was a hole. I'm not sure that.
Well, there's a hole now.
There's
Culverts all coming across the road.
Holes where the sidewalk is proposed to go?
Yeah, we're picking up all the water coming out.
There isn't a whole lot of room in there.
Well, if we 10 foot off the right of way, you'll want to hug the right of way with sidewalk, because then it falls right
Well,
off.
like I say, it's getting.
Well, we're balancing,
You're right.
we're balancing
We're on
everything the
real
best we
estate to
can.
make this thing look good.
And some of those trees, if they're not right on State Road, they could be on the north side of our new road. So that it still is, the view from State Road, but it's just
Well,
not.
that's where in my mind I thought that they would go.
Yeah, we
Maybe
can
we
do,
put them here.
we put them along our new road.
Yeah.
Some on each road.
I mean, we added some pines here based on the last comments, so that from the neighbors that were commenting about looking down that road, I mean, we added pine trees at the end of the road so that you're not looking down that road.
And the concern of headlights, that we lined up when the road came in, we hit a row of pines so that the headlights would hit the pines and not the houses across the street.
That was based on the comments.
That was your
we had
comment.
before.
Yep, that was your.
So we added additional pines so that those headlights wouldn't be shining coming down those roads, which is also going to break up the view from State, because you're going to see the pines in between the units.
Did you say you're using poplars too?
No, it's just poplar that's in there. We're not planting any poplar. They'll grow fast. Big weeds.
3 to 5 feet a year.
Yeah.
Other comments or thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
What happened to the suggestion about hiring somebody outside to look at the site?
Well, what we were starting to say there was, let's hone it down into what we were trying to accomplish. And what we were trying to accomplish was the view from State Road. What we talked about was additional trees or something else. Let's keep in mind that there's a potential easement along that way so that we have a right of way to build a sidewalk if at some other time we decide to connect the areas. We didn't want to redesign the whole thing, that wasn't the purpose, but to address that area along State Road. Now, we've increased by 40% the total number of potential, I'll call them trees, but they might be pines, they might be, I don't know what they would be. But increase the density, give a better view so that we didn't have that sidewalk thing. And if we can accomplish that without having to go out to an arborist, then I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Peter?
Quick question, just to caboose onto what you just said. There's no way to get a rendering of what that might look like at, say, 20 years? Just the thought.
I don't know.
Just because that maybe I would settle some of the questions about what this actually, it's hard to envision what the vegetation would look like a given number of years out, but there's people out there that can do that.
Well, I'll tell you what you do. Take a walk back into the Shantz tract. Take a look at all the trees that are there. There's some kind of super silver maple. They were built to grow fast and never grow more than 40 feet high. Most of them have hit that. And a lot of them are having limbs come down right now. But those were designed to grow fast and never hit more than 40 feet. So, I don't know if we can get a real picture and how much good it would be, Peter, but an idea of what it looks like in 60 years, I think that's a pretty good idea of what it looks like in 60 years.
Okay. Hopefully none of us care in 60 years.
Well, there you go.
I'll be 108.
Mr. Casper.
But the trunk of a deciduous tree doesn't block your view hardly at all. Especially from across the road. I think of the sub-10 angle that you look through.
Well, I think we said that
That
we.
doesn't block one window on one of the buildings. You're talking about planting individual trees, you look right by them.
If we want to say 10 more pines, we could do that.
Pardon me?
10 more pine trees. If you wanted, instead of just a mix, we just do 10 more pine trees.
I don't know whether that's the right thing to do or not, but.
I don't either, but I'm.
Well, that would be
That would be
cover the
more
lower
dense.
end. Right
That
now,
would be
what he's
bigger at the
looking at is
base.
scrub brush mixed within the taller trees. So you take all that scrub brush out, you're gonna see an individual trunk.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
He's looking at scrub.
it's just scrub brush.
But in their plans, they also have shrubs that are going to be planted in their yards and in their front of their houses.
Yeah, there's a foundation,
There's a
planting
foundation.
plan.
Right.
For
Foundation
each,
plan.
for each unit.
So you'll
that
see
has-
that, and that'll grow faster. People probably plant flowers. I don't think it'll look as dark as perhaps you're envisioning. You know, these are going to be the front of people's houses. I plant flowers in front of mine. I live in a townhouse.
Unfortunately, we have a very unique situation where right now you face woods, right? That's the fact, right? Most people in the village, when they look out their window, they see another house and a garage. You just have the unique ability, because of where you are, you see woods.
No, that's not the point.
Well, but you're saying that all you're gonna see is garages and fronts, but that's what we see when we look out our window, is garages and fronts of houses. Because houses are across the street from each other.
Just garages.
Well, no, you're gonna see this. This is what you're gonna see if you take the trees out.
Not from any distance. This is, lose the perspective of detail. 100 feet away. Go look at arborvitae from a distance. Now, this is no large one. Yeah, well, I would agree. Dude, if you stand back far enough.
If we had a proposal or a condition on this, is it all pines? Is it a mix? It's not gonna end up being the same that it's at right now, but I'm trying my best to get us to something we can live with.
Can I make a recommendation?
Oh geez, I wish you would.
Can you make it a condition of the preliminary approval that at final approval, we come back in with a different plan, that when I come in for final approval, it's gonna be a 50 scale plan. You're gonna be able to, these are 100 scale overall. We're gonna come in with a 50 scale.
You mean for phase one,
For
section one?
section one final plans, we're gonna come in with section one plan. Section one includes everything on State Road. So we come in and make it a condition of the preliminary or whatever you wanna do, that when we come in with final, we do a detailed review of the landscaping along State Road. We'll have more detailed plans on fogging up. With more detailed plans, there'll be 50 scale plans. We can show the additional landscaping. We can better show the sidewalk easement, the landscaping on either side, and then we can try to do a harder look at it with a more detailed plan.
That's a pretty generous and pretty fair offer, I think.
Yes,
How do you guys feel?
absolutely.
Well, does the village sign off on the preliminary plans? No.
So Don, can we do
Just
that?
held in the resolution?
No, that's the better way to do it.
Well, I'm just asking.
Rather than make a specific condition, 10 more trees and this and that, they'll.
We can make it, we
I
can give
think
preliminary
after this
approval if
meeting,
we so
they
find.
understand what the concerns are.
Right.
they're gonna address the concerns, and when they come back at final, if they haven't adequately addressed the concerns, you don't grant them final approval.
That's pretty, yeah. All right. At this point, I'm going to close down the discussion. What we have is potential for discussion among the board members, and/or they could give a motion. Remember, what we are doing here is preliminary. This doesn't say, yep, it's a slam dunk, we didn't listen to anybody, we're going to go ahead and do it. It still has to come back for final approval before the project can be approved. So, at that point, with the discussion closed, I'm going to ask the board to give me a motion either for or against it.
I'm ready to make a motion. My motion is a positive recommendation for preliminary site plan approval with 3 contingencies. First contingency.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Do we gotta do seeker for preliminary?
No, we don't have to.
Okay, just checking.
That's all right, thank you. I like it when you remind
Thought
me.
about it too.
All right, just checking, okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. Contingency 1 is landscape design, subject to final Village of Webster review. That's generic enough to not talk about number of trees, it's just landscape plan is subject to final review. B, consideration for a sidewalk spur connecting the subdivision sidewalk to State Road along driveway 96, potential.
That's the one that Michael showed you. He
Yeah.
came up and pointed it out there.
Yeah, okay. To
All
link,
right.
to link, connection to linkage.
Yeah,
There you go.
something like that.
Now,
And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, can we look at that coming either from Road B to State, or from our Road A entry to State? Can we show one of those alternatives?
I would have thought it would have come from Road B, but, yeah.
What's that?
I would have thought it would have come from Road B.
No, I'm saying Road A is the stub. So where you want to potentially put sidewalks in the future, you hope to see, we put from Road A to Lincolnshire and run the easement the entire way.
Got it.
So we don't have this sidewalk that comes across next to this driveway and then,
Michael?
I was just trying to make it a shorter route, but.
I think it's the better,
Do that, that's the better way.
I'd rather spend the money on the better way, to be quite honest with you. And I appreciate the shorter route, but I think it makes more sense for the community if you're going to enter from the front of the community, not along someone's driveway.
I agree.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you again.
contingency number 3 is a sidewalk easement along State Road, the entire length of the project, for potential future sidewalks by others.
Okay, so what we've got on the table, preliminary site plan approval for the project, subject to a landscape review by this board, consideration, or the putting in of the, call it whatever you want, spur B, whatever, it's the little sidewalk there. And then continuation of a sidewalk easement along State Road, the remainder of the property. Do we have a second for
I'll
that?
second that.
Seconded by Kathy. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next meeting, we'll let you know when it is. It's usually the third Thursday.
Oh, thank you, Ted, I appreciate it.
Make sure that we recognize,
That ends up too close.
this is Will Barham's last meeting with us. I know he has been, I know he has been invaluable to all of us, especially me, and I certainly appreciate it. And I wish you much good luck as you go on, but why do I know I'm going to hear that fish story with the ducks as a sermon? I'm thinking, you were building that as you were going. But Will, Good luck, congratulations, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, none, thank you very much, we are adjourned.
When we have that,